After over 2 long years of waiting, the Jujutsu Kaisen anime is back once again for season 2. And with that has come Mappa's adaptation of one of the most anticipated arcs in the series, the Hidden Inventory arc. And wow, Mappa really outdid themselves with these first 5 episodes, man. This has already surpassed season 1 for me, not only in terms of the actual content, but also of the animation, direction, art style, everything, man. As a manga reader, I was blown away by every episode. And I can't even imagine what it's like to be an anime only right now. I decided to make this video purely because it was so good that I felt almost obligated to give my thoughts on it. So in this video, I'll be going over each episode and what I liked, loved, and maybe even disliked about each of them. And then I'll maybe talk about what lies ahead for when the anime comes back from its break and my expectations for that as well. Episode 1 is an extremely strong start to the season. I loved how they started with Geto's monologue that reappears in episode 5, showing the anime-onlys that we're indeed about to get into Geto's backstory and how exactly he fell so far from grace, and giving them a little taste of it. But my favorite thing about this episode has got to be the 9-minute anime original scene of Mei and Utsuhime being sent on their haunted mansion mission, and the brilliant explanation of how the spirit's curse works and what they were going to do to break free. Of course, you know, before Gojo came in and ruined it. The sheer ambition they had animation-wise for this scene was oozing from the screen, and I could feel it seeping into my bones. I mean, just look at this cut. It's so unique looking, and you can really tell that they were getting experimental, which is something I really appreciate in anime. The scene where Utsuhime looks under the bed is just so gorgeous. This panning shot of the mansion is gorgeous. Everything is gorgeous, man, and this whole original scene is just immaculate. Huge props to Mappa for doing this. They could have easily shit out a 9-minute recap of season 1 or something, but they really decided to go the extra mile, which shows that they truly care for the show and have a lot of passion for it. Everything after the original scene was amazing as well. The character acting was especially strong this episode. Absolutely loved the Gojo and Geto walking scene. They could have just made a typical generic anime walk, but they said, nah, we gotta give them actual personalities, and it's fantastic. Chibi Geto was great too. I also really appreciate how they changed up some scenes from how they were in the manga to make them more visually appealing and more fitting for the medium of animation. Like the basketball scene and towards the end where Geto and Gojo split up and Geto goes up the elevator to the apartment, instead of them both being on the ground when the explosion happens. Then of course the episode ends on Toji's introduction, who has himself quite an amazing voice actor, I must say. Also, by the way, this shot is really fucking good. I don't really have anything negative to say about this episode, to be honest. I thought it did what it needed to do perfectly. Now we got episode 2. By the way, I don't think I mentioned this yet, but the art style change for this season is the best decision that JJK Anime has made, man. It looks so good, and the color palette is amazing, and it allows for really simple but fluid character designs and movement, and it just looks absolutely jaw-dropping, man. I'm so happy. One of my favorite mangas is getting such a phenomenal adaptation, man. And of course we got the director change to Shoto Goshizono, and wow, what a fucking director he is. When he storyboards an episode, I feel like I'm watching an entire movie. This man is diabolical on the director's chair, bro. He cannot be stopped. Don't get me wrong, Sun-Hoo Park was a great director for season 1, but Goshizono was on another fucking level, man. Okay, let's talk about the actual episode now. It's really fucking good. This episode definitely was of the least priority to the staff, but it's still stunning nonetheless. The amount of character acting and personality given to Toji this episode was really fun to see. The direction during the Gojo and Baghead fight, if you could even call it a fight, was super creative as well and a real joy to see. My favorite part of the episode though has got to be Geto versus the old man. The way he just cuts to bro's dog and his life flashes before his eyes before Geto hits him with the nastiest combo I've seen since Gojo versus Miguel. Like, taking an ass whooping this bad has got to spell the end of your bloodline. There's no way you can carry on your family name after taking this much punishment. It's simply over for you at this point, bro. This was complete devastation, and I laughed so hard at how well they adapted this scene and had to rewind multiple times to watch it again. This was truly something special. If I had to say something negative about this episode, I'd say that the animation is slightly less impressive than episode 1, but this was presumably the lowest priority episode, at least for Hidden Inventory, so that's more of a nitpick than an actual complaint. Alright, now we're getting to the main course. Episode 3 kicks the story as well as the animation into high gear. Riko's scene in the aquarium was so incredibly beautiful, and the music was really making me feel some type of way too. Love to see that mini compilation of the activities they did in Okinawa. Gojo and Geto making sure this girl has as much fun as possible before the merger was really sweet to see, and makes the later events of the episode hit so much harder. Speaking of, let's talk about Toji vs. Gojo, an iconic series-altering event that was even better here than it was in the manga. They captured the horrifying suddenness of Toji's initial attack perfectly. Loved as well how they portrayed Toji's incomprehensible speed, with him zooming through the trees and just fucking disappearing. Then of course there's the magnificent cut of Gojo using maximum output blue. Not much to say about it, it's simply fucking gorgeous and done perfectly. Another thing that was done perfectly was Toji's visceral dissection of Satoru Gojo. This man popped his impenetrable shield like a bubble and proceeded to carve him up like a chef filleting fish, my guy. He was disrespectful with it too. There was no need for him to stab the same leg 4 times before finishing him off with a quick shank to the forehead. Bro was thirsty for this kill. And then of course we have Geto and Riko's conversation at the end. The emotional aspects were done super well and it really made you feel for and sympathize with Riko. The ending song playing over Riko's speech, making you think the episode was over, was nasty work. Toji really pulled out the strap and finished the job right then and there. No complaints about this episode, it was perfect. Episode 4, the Honored One episode. The Toji vs. Geto fight is so much longer here than in the manga. In the manga, it was like a few pages long and Toji mopped the floor with him. But here, they let Geto use a lot more of his curses against Toji, making it seem like much closer of a fight, only for the ending to reveal that it wasn't actually close at all, and Geto still stood 0 chance. And Toji, once again, with his habit of clowning on people he's beaten, gives Geto a quick kick to the face and lets him live only because of the unknown factor that his technique brings. Now, me personally, if I was Geto, I would not let this slide. I'd awaken some kind of power-up immediately here, but you know, I guess Geto might be like that. We get some really creative shots in the Sanada scene, get some casual dialogue, and then boom! A ghost appears. Satoru Gojo is back from the dead. He figured out reverse curse technique on the brink of death and has awakened himself to a whole new level of understanding cursed energy. Gojo's feralness is portrayed perfectly here. I know some people were complaining about the shots not being one-to-one recreations of the manga panels, but I think that's a pretty stupid complaint. If you want to know why I think it's stupid, watch my Chainsaw Man Needs More Hype video. But anyway, we then get to round 2 of Gojo vs. Toji. And man, does it look phenomenal. The fight itself is extremely short, but it has so much weight and dramaticness, is that a word? Behind it because of last episode, and it makes Gojo's victory here feel so earned. Toji swinging the chain of 1,000 miles was gorgeous. Gojo seeing the beauty of the world was even more gorgeous. And don't even get me started on the music that was playing during this scene. My god, I got chills watching this. And then of course we get the iconic quote, "Throughout heaven and earth, I alone am the honored one." And this is where my one complaint about the episode comes in. Now, hold your horses. Before you think I'm one of those guys that complains about the framing of the shot, I'm not. That's not my issue. I have no problem with how it looked at all. I thought it was framed and animated perfectly. Of course, the manga will look slightly different. That's manga, this is anime, 2 different mediums, okay? But what I did have a problem with is how fast bro said the line. It cut to the shot and he said, the subtitles appeared for like 2 seconds, barely enough time to even read the damn line, and then it cuts away like he didn't just utter the hardest line in the series. Like, to me, it just didn't feel like it was dramatic enough. It didn't hit as hard as it needed to, and it was kind of glossed over. It felt like they thought the line was cringe and wanted to get past him saying it as fast as possible. Like, that's what it felt like. An example of how I think it should have been is no further than the English dub.
Throughout heaven and earth, I alone am the honored one.
In the shot of Gojo rotating, he says, "Throughout heaven and earth." Then when the close-up shot appears, "I alone am the honored one." That's perfect, that's how it should have been. Props to the dub for doing it better than the sub, y'all did good. But alright, that's enough about that, let's finish off the episode. Toji's death and the way it panned out from the giant hole in the building to the giant hole in him looked incredible, and the end credits scene was done perfectly as well. It's a very obvious shot, but this divide between Geto and Gojo was a really good inclusion, and the people clapping had some really impressive animation on them when they didn't really need to. They could have just done a lazy up and down motion on their hands or something, but if you haven't figured it out already, the team working on this actually cares about the show and wants to go the extra mile on details like this, so once again, huge props. Episode 5, my beloved. This is easily the best episode so far, which is crazy to say because the past 4 have been nothing short of exceptional, but episode 5 was just on a whole nother level, man. This episode right here perfectly encapsulates why I love JJK so much. Of course, JJK is mainly action and the fights are one of my favorite aspects of the series, but this episode shows that Gege is also capable of absolutely incredible character and story writing. Like, this episode is a masterclass in not only art and animation, but in writing as well. I'm not going to talk about every scene that I loved, as this video is getting long enough already, and that would be literally every scene. So I'll just go through some of my favorite aspects of the episode. This whole opening scene, like the way the characters are drawn, and how 3D and like just good they look. I don't know how to explain it. It's just a different style than the previous episodes, and it just blows me away with how amazing it looks. Especially this cut with Gojo's hand movements. And I love how far away Gojo looked and get those POV here. That was a nice touch, showing how distant the two were becoming in both their friendship and their power. The shower scene has some of the best artwork in the series. Just look at this, man. And the noise of the shower water slowly turning into the sound of the clapping as the value of non-sorcerers continues to erode in his mind was lovely. Yuki looked amazing, and I loved how the flashback was integrated into the scene with the window behind him. Very creative storyboarding. As Yuki explains that cursed spirits come only from non-sorcerers, the clapping once again comes back into Geto's mind, but then it starts to rain, and now it's like, which is it, the rain or the clapping? Absolutely brilliant. I literally nutted my pants when I first witnessed this scene. Then of course, Haibara's death, causing Geto to further question the end goal of Jujutsu sorcerers, or I guess the fact that there is no end goal, is simply exercise, exercise, exercise until you eventually die, never actually going after the root cause. But even knowing this, Geto hasn't yet broken. He's still going on missions and trying to find any reason to choose being a Jujutsu sorcerer as his true feelings. But then, during a mission, he finds 2 sorcerer children being abused and treated like monsters by non-sorcerers. And even after Geto gets rid of the spirit that was causing the problems they thought the children were doing, they still refuse to budge on their hatred and desire to blame those monstrous children for all their problems. This is what finally sends Geto over the edge. A flame goes out. One of his 2 paths is no longer an option. His double shadow merges into one. He has now chosen his truth. The monkeys must die!
スグルの実家はすでにもぬけの殻だった。ただ結婚と残影からおそらく両親も手にかかる。なわけねえだろ！サトル、俺も何が何だかわからんのだ。
Shout out to Gojo's voice actor for the delivery of these lines. You can really feel his shock and anger at the whole situation. His one and only best friend had turned into a monstrous murderer who killed an entire village as well as his own parents. I like as well how healthy Geto looks after he makes his decision. Finally making a choice after a year of struggling between 2 different paths finally gives him a more clear and healthy mind, instead of constantly being depressed and sleep deprived, as we saw him before. Love that the crowd here is 2D and not CGI. Not that CGI is bad, 2D is just more work, so this whole crowd being 2D is just more impressive. The scene of Geto taking over this cult is one of my favorites in the whole episode. The animation of Geto's movements is some of the cleanest character acting I've seen in a very long time. And I adore how he can't hear the crowd at all, and it just says, many objected. It just adds to the atmosphere of the scene, and the music kind of sounds like the clapping, but it was also like really upbeat and happy sounding, I guess. And I love how fast it transitions to Sonoda getting crushed. It's just so beautiful. I love everything about the scene. This is how you adapt a fucking manga into animation, right here. And again, these are just some of my favorite aspects or scenes from the episode, but every scene and hell, every frame of this episode is superbly animated and amazing in its own way. I have nothing negative to say about this episode, and not a single thing I can really nitpick either. This was simply a masterclass. I knew this season was going to be good because the 2 arcs being covered were some of the best the manga has to offer, and because season 1 already looked really good, but I wasn't expecting this much of an upgrade visually and direction wise. This might actually shape up to be one of, if not the best, examples of a manga being adapted into an anime, like of all time maybe. I may be waffling, but I think it has a pretty strong case. Alright, from this point forward, I'll be talking about content that will be covered when season 2 returns from its break. So anime onlys, y'all can go ahead and exit the video now, unless you want to get spoiled. Thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed, and make sure to subscribe. So next episode is Adapting Chapter 64 that was skipped over. over, but I'm not sure what else it'll be adapting. I can see it adapting the rest of chapter 79 after chapter 64 and having some anime original content to stretch it out, but I can also see it adapting only chapter 64 and adding lots of original content to turn it into an entire episode. Of course, they can also adapt chapter 64, the rest of 79, and 80 to fill out the episode with no original stuff, but I don't think that'll be the case because I think they'll want to adapt the entirety of Mechamaru's Last Dance into one single episode instead of splitting it across two. So I think episode 6 will be chapter 64 and original content only, which I would enjoy because it'll be the last wholesome fun episode we get for a long time, if ever, to be honest. And episode 7 will probably be the rest of chapter 69, and then chapter 80 through 82, which is the entire Mechamaru fight, which would be 3.5 chapters, but I think they can do it because fights can be adapted pretty fast. And then obviously episode 8 through 23 will be the Shibuya incident arc. I'm really looking forward to every single episode from here on out, even the Goofy episode we're getting next week. I think, or at least I hope, that MAPPA is going to keep up the insane quality that they put into hidden inventory for the rest of the season. And if that is the case, we're in for one hell of a fucking season, man. I cannot wait for the rest of this to air. Shibuya is gonna be insane. I already know they're gonna pop off. I'll most likely make a video on Shibuya once it finishes, so make sure to hit that subscribe button and that bell to be notified of future uploads. I love every single one of you. Like the video, comment your thoughts on MAPPA's adaptation of hidden inventory, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Peace.